What happens when Elon Musk walks onto a live daytime talk show known for bold opinions, heated debates, and real-time audience reactions? And instead of giving long, calculated answers, he responds so simply that it immediately changes the energy in the studio. Make sure to subscribe to Fame After Hours, and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The camera pans across the audience, applause fills the studio, and then Elon steps onto the stage, wearing his signature black t-shirt and a calm, composed expression. The hosts rise slightly from their seats, offering polite greetings, while the audience continues clapping, some standing in excitement. One of the co-hosts leans in with a bright smile, clearly eager to start the conversation, while another adjusts her notes, signaling that this segment is about to get intense. First of all, Elon, welcome, the main host says warmly, looking directly at him. We've been following your work for years, rockets, electric cars, AI, even Twitter. You're one of the most talked about people in the world. Every week there's some headline involving you, and frankly, sometimes it's hard to keep up. The audience chuckles lightly, nodding along, and Elon responds with a subtle nod. Sometimes it feels like the world is just chasing what Elon does next, another host adds quickly, leaning forward. So today, we want to hear from you directly. Elon smiles faintly. I'll do my best. The main host leans in, scanning her notes. Okay, let's start with the big picture. You're pushing humanity forward in multiple fields at once. Space, sustainable energy, artificial intelligence. Some people see you as a visionary. Others argue that with such influence comes responsibility and scrutiny. How do you balance the two? Elon leans back slightly in his chair, appearing relaxed. I mostly just try to solve problems. The co-host raises an eyebrow, a small smirk on her face. That's it? Just solve problems? Pretty much, Elon responds, keeping his calm demeanor. The audience murmurs in agreement, a few chuckles rippling through. But solving problems at your scale, another host interrupts, is very different from regular problems. Most of us are talking about bills, schedules, day-to-day issues. You're talking about rockets, AI, electric cars. That's a different league. Elon shrugs slightly. The scale is different, but the principle is the same. The first host nods, her tone shifting slightly. Fair enough. But let's get specific. Artificial intelligence. Some experts warn it could become dangerous if not managed properly. Yet, your companies are heavily involved in AI development. How do you reconcile that? Elon glances at the host, keeping his tone measured. I understand why people see it that way. So explain it to us, the host presses, because many viewers are confused. Another host jumps in immediately. Exactly. One day you warn about AI risks, the next day you're announcing new AI projects. People see mixed messaging. Elon nods slowly. The reason I discuss risks is simple. When something is powerful, you should handle it carefully. But if it's dangerous, the host interjects, shouldn't development slow down instead of accelerating? Elon pauses for a moment, letting the question sink in. If responsible people stop building it, he says calmly, that doesn't mean the technology stops existing. The audience quiets, absorbing his words. A few people exchange surprised glances. Another host leans forward, clearly wanting to challenge him. So you build it to keep it safe? Basically, yes, Elon says. The hosts share quick glances, tension rising subtly. Okay, one of them says, but that sounds like the classic argument industries use to resist oversight. Elon smiles faintly. I actually support regulation. That statement draws audible gasps and murmurs from the audience. Wait a second, the main host says, eyebrows raised. You're a tech CEO asking for regulation? Yes, Elon replies simply. The audience reacts with a mix of surprise and applause. One of the co-hosts leans closer. Now that's not something we hear every day. Well, Elon continues, with something like AI, waiting until a crisis occurs before creating rules is unwise. But critics argue that tech companies often lobby for regulation only after they've already dominated the market, another host says, leaning forward. That can happen, Elon admits. So how do we know that's not the case here? The host presses. The audience leans in, sensing the tension building. Elon's voice remains calm. You don't have to trust me. The rules should apply to everyone equally. Another host jumps in, pointing out, Elon, your management style has also faced criticism. Long hours, intense deadlines, high pressure. Some former employees have described it as extreme. The audience murmurs, nodding in acknowledgement. One host adds, some say expectations are unrealistic, and it can take a toll on people's well-being. Elon takes a brief pause, then replies, building new technology is inherently difficult. But difficulty doesn't justify unhealthy work environments, another host interrupts, voice rising slightly. Elon nods slowly. That's true. Some criticism may be valid. The audience reacts with soft surprise, murmuring. No organization is perfect, Elon adds simply. Another host leans forward. Yet at the same time, you're one of the richest people alive. Critics worry about wealth concentration and how individuals like you can influence society. Applause and murmurs ripple through the audience. So, do you think it's healthy for society when billionaires hold such power? The host asks, voice firm. The studio goes quiet for a moment. Elon looks thoughtful, pausing before responding. Power doesn't come from money, he says calmly. The hosts exchange quick glances. What do you mean? One asks. It comes from the ability to build things people choose to use, Elon explains. There's a brief pause, audience murmuring softly. Another host taps her pen on the table, challenging, but money makes building things easier. That's true, Elon says. Another co-host jumps in. Critics argue that wealth allows you to influence politics, media, and public debate. Elon nods once. That's possible. So, let me ask you something directly. The host leans in, eyes locked on him. If you could answer one question honestly for our viewers right now, do you believe billionaires should exist at all? The studio becomes extremely quiet. Even the other hosts lean forward. Elon pauses, then leans slightly toward the table. I think, he says simply, the better question is whether the things we build actually make life better for people. A hush falls over the room. The audience murmurs, surprised by the simplicity and clarity of the answer. One host blinks slowly. Another leans back, caught off guard. Okay, but that's not exactly what I asked, the first host says slowly, a hint of tension in her voice. Elon smiles faintly. I understand, but I think focusing on impact matters more than labels. The audience nods and murmurs in agreement, sensing the conversation is just warming up. The tension at the table is tangible, and the energy in the studio signals that the next moments will be intense. The camera returns to Elon, who sits calmly while the hosts exchange quick glances. One host leans forward, voice sharp. Elon, let's talk about SpaceX. Timelines are ambitious, and employees say pressure is intense. How do you respond? Elon leans back slightly. Space exploration is risky. Delays happen. That's normal. Another host interrupts, tapping the table. Normal? People miss personal milestones, and morale suffers. How do you justify that? Elon keeps calm. I understand. It's not ideal, but pushing humanity forward requires challenge. One host presses further. Does that mean the ends justify the means? Sometimes, Elon replies. But we also care about employee well-being. Audience murmurs. Another host leans in, skeptical. Yet former employees speak publicly about high stress. Isn't that concerning? Elon nods. Feedback is valuable. I take it seriously. The discussion shifts. Tesla, the host says, autopilot, recalls, safety concerns. How do you reconcile that with public trust? Elon responds, calm. Innovation carries risk. Safety improvements are ongoing. But speed seems to outweigh caution sometimes, the host interrupts. Autopilot updates roll out rapidly. Critics argue capabilities are exaggerated. The goal, Elon says, is clarity and progress. Misunderstandings happen, but we aim to improve continuously. Another host pushes, voice rising. Learning is one thing, but when does ambition become recklessness? People's lives are at stake. It's a balance, Elon replies. No company is perfect, but we prioritize safety while advancing technology. Audience shifts in seats. Media portrays constant tension around your companies. Is this just the billionaire reality? A host asks. Elon glances at the table. Visibility amplifies controversy, sometimes unfairly. But critics say your influence shapes narratives. How do we know what's accurate? Transparency matters, Elon says. Facts speak louder than perception. A host presses further. Public perception shapes trust and policy. Isn't that a heavy responsibility? Elon shrugs slightly. Responsibility comes with leadership, but accountability is collective, not just one person's burden. Some critics may be right, a host says cautiously. Some are valid, some misinterpreted, Elon replies. Acknowledging reality helps improvement. Audience murmurs approval. Another host adds, but the public wants accountability and clarity, not just broad answers. Elon leans back calmly. Improvement matters more than perfection. The studio holds a tense silence as hosts exchange looks, the audience anticipating the next round of questions, sensing the conversation is far from over. The hosts exchange quick glances, leaning forward. Elon, one says, voice firm, let's talk Twitter. You bought it, made major changes, and critics argue it's chaotic now. Do you regret any decisions? Elon leans back, calm. Regret isn't productive. I focus on solutions and improvements. Another host interrupts, raising an eyebrow. Solutions? People complain about layoffs, policy shifts, and misinformation. How is that improving anything? Elon nods slightly. Change is difficult, but it's necessary. We aim for better transparency and user experience. Audience murmurs, some clapping softly. But Elon, a host presses, many feel these changes benefit certain voices over others. How do you respond to accusations of bias? Elon smiles faintly. The platform is for everyone. Bias is not intentional. Mistakes happen, and we correct them when identified. A co-host leans forward sharply. Mistakes affect millions. Don't you feel a personal responsibility? Elon looks thoughtful. Responsibility exists, yes, but systems, teams, and checks are in place. I can't control every outcome personally. One host sighs. So when things go wrong, it's systemic, not leadership? In part, yes, Elon replies. Leadership guides, but oversight involves many. Accountability is shared. Audience murmurs again, some nodding, others skeptical. Let's pivot, another host says. Billionaire culture. Critics say it fosters inequality. Do you think extreme wealth concentration is a problem? Elon pauses. Wealth itself isn't power. Impact is. The goal is building things that improve lives. But critics argue your influence is massive, a host presses. From media to politics, your voice carries weight others don't have. Elon leans slightly forward. Influence comes with visibility, but society as a whole determines accountability. The audience reacts, some murmuring, sensing tension. Then what about ethics? A host challenges. Some say technological innovation shouldn't outpace moral consideration. Elon nods. Ethics are vital. We consider potential impacts, but waiting for perfect consensus could stall progress. Another host raises an eyebrow. So you're saying progress trumps caution? Not trumps, Elon clarifies. Balance is key. Safety, ethics, and progress together. Audience murmurs, impressed by the measured tone. But when mistakes happen, a co-host interrupts, like Tesla recalls or AI concerns, how can the public trust your judgment? Elon shrugs slightly. Mistakes are learning opportunities. The goal is continual improvement, not perfection. A host leans closer. And yet, the stakes are higher than ever. Lives, safety, society. Doesn't that pressure weigh on you? Elon smiles faintly. Pressure is inherent. Focus matters more than stress. Doing nothing isn't an option. Audience murmurs approval, some clapping. One host raises her voice slightly. So Elon, the big question, do you believe you're accountable enough for your actions? Elon pauses, eyes scanning the room, and says simply, I am. And I hope the systems around me ensure accountability too. The audience murmurs, the tension palpable. Hosts exchange quick looks. It's clear the conversation is heating up, and the next round promises even more intensity. The tension in the studio is palpable as the segment nears its end. The hosts glance at each other, realizing they've pushed Elon to his limits, but he remains composed. One host leans in, voice measured. Elon, before we wrap up, let's talk about your personal philosophy. After all the controversies, criticism, and pressure, what keeps you going? Elon pauses for a moment, looking at the audience. I focus on impact. If the work I do improves life for people, it's worth the criticism, the stress, and the mistakes along the way. A host nods slowly, impressed. That's fair. But some viewers might say you're too focused on progress and not enough on accountability. How do you respond? Elon leans forward, calm. Accountability is vital. But it's also a collective responsibility. Systems, teams, and society all play a role. I can't do it alone. The audience murmurs, some nodding, others leaning in. One host smiles slightly. That's a nuanced answer. I think people needed to hear that perspective. Another host interrupts lightly. And yet, Elon, public perception is tricky. Your tweets, your companies, your actions, everything is scrutinized. How do you handle criticism in real time? Elon shrugs faintly. Criticism is inevitable. Focus on facts and outcomes, not emotions. Constructive criticism is helpful. Noise isn't. The camera pans to the audience, which applauds, some rising to their feet. Murmurs of admiration and surprise ripple across the studio. One audience member whispers, "He really thinks differently from most billionaires." Backstage, the producers are already monitoring social media. Twitter lights up instantly. At TechFan123, Elon's answers today were surprisingly honest. Respect for focusing on impact over ego. At Daily Debate, the View panel got real answers from Musk. Finally, clarity on controversial topics. Hashtag Elon on the View. Trending within minutes. One host smiles at Elon. "Well, Elon, that was intense. Thank you for taking the time to be so candid." Elon nods. "Thank you for the questions. They were important." As the segment concludes, the hosts face the camera together. That's it for today's segment. Elon Musk shared his perspective, addressed controversies, and gave insight into how he approaches leadership, innovation, and responsibility. The audience applauds again. Some people are still discussing the answers among themselves, shaking their heads in surprise at the calm, measured responses Elon gave despite the pressure. One co-host addresses the viewers directly. "We want to hear what you think. Did Elon answer your questions honestly? Are you convinced by his focus on impact over criticism?" Another host adds, "Share your opinion in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to Fame After Hours for more real talk show stories, debates, and exclusive interviews." The camera slowly pans over the audience one last time, capturing reactions ranging from intrigue to admiration. Backstage, producers check the social media trends. Clips from the interview are already being shared, gifs of Elon's calm demeanor circulating across platforms. Comment threads explode with debate, speculation, and praise. Even after the show, news outlets are discussing the key moments. Headlines read, "Elon Musk gives simple yet profound answers on The View," and "Billionaire talks accountability and impact in rarely seen interview." The energy carries beyond the studio. Elon walks off stage, shaking hands with the production team, smiling slightly. His focus remains unchanged, impact over perception, facts over noise. The segment ends, but conversation continues online and offline. And for viewers at home, the hosts leave one final message. Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Fame After Hours for more real talk show stories. We'll keep bringing you the debates, the surprises, and the moments that make live TV unforgettable. The screen fades to the show's logo as the audience claps, the social media notifications buzzing, signaling the viral potential of this unforgettable segment.